This is video 7 of my dinner with Andre review, and the next part is one of the funny parts of Wally talking about his life after Andre had been talking about all of these amazing things. Um, Here's Wally talking. See, my actual response, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to earn a living, just trying to pay my rents and pay my bills. I live my life. I enjoy staying home with Debbie. I'm reading Charlton Heston's autobiography, and that's, occasionally maybe Debbie and I'll step outside. We'll go to a party or something, and if I can occasionally get my little talent together and write a little play, well, then that's just wonderful. And I enjoy reading about other little plays that other people have written and reading the reviews of those plays and what people said about them and what people said about what people said. I have a list of errands and responsibilities I keep in a notebook. I enjoy going through the notebook, carrying out the responsibilities, doing the errands, and then crossing them off the list. I just don't know how anybody could enjoy anything more than I enjoy reading Charlton Heston's autobiography. Or, getting up in the morning and having the cold cup of coffee that's been waiting for me all night, still there for me to drink in the morning. And no cockroach or fly has died in it overnight. I'm just so thrilled when I get up and see that coffee there just the way I wanted it. I just can't imagine how anybody could enjoy something else any more than that. Obviously, if there is a dead cockroach in it, well then I just have a feeling of disappointment and I'm sad. But I just don't think I feel the need for anything more than all this. Whereas, you seem to be saying that it's inconceivable that anybody could have a meaningful life today. And, everyone is totally destroyed. And we all need to live in these outposts. But I just can't believe, even for you, don't you find, isn't it pleasant just to get up in the morning and there's Chiquita, there's the children, and the Times is delivered, you can read it. Maybe you'll direct a play, maybe you won't direct a play, but forget about the play that you may or may not direct. Why is it necessary to? Why not lean back and just enjoy these details? There'd be a delicious cup of coffee and a piece of coffee cake. Why is it necessary to have more than this? Or even to think about having more than this? I don't really know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, but I don't really know what you're talking about. And you know, even if I were to totally agree with you, and even if I were to accept the idea that there's just no way for anybody to have a personal happiness now, well, I still could accept the idea that the way to make life wonderful would be just to totally, reject Western civilization and fall back into some kind of belief in some kind of weird something. I mean, I mean, I don't even know how to begin talking about this. But do you know, in the Middle Ages, before the arrival of scientific thinking, as we know it today, well, people could believe anything. Anything could be true. The statue of the Virgin Mary could speak or bleed or whatever it was. But the wonderful thing that happened was that then in the development of science in the Western world, well, certain things did come slowly to be known and understood. Obviously all ideas in science are constantly being revised. That's the whole point. But we do at least know that the universe has some shape and order, and that, trees do not turn into people or goddesses, and there are very good reasons why they don't. And you just can't believe absolutely anything. Whereas the things you're talking about, you found the handprint in the book, and there were 3 Andres and 1 Andre de Saint-Exupéry, and to me that's a coincidence. And then, the people who put the book together, well, they had their own reasons for putting it together. But to you, it was significant. And if that book had been written 40 years ago, so that you would see it as if it was planned for you in a way. All right, let's say if I get a fortune cookie in a Chinese restaurant, I mean, of course, even I have a tendency, of course, I would hardly throw it out. I mean, I read it, and I just instinctively sort of, if it's something like conversation with a dark-haired man will be very important for you. Well, I just instinctively think, who do I know who has dark hair? Did we have a conversation? What did we talk about? In other words, there's something in me that makes me read it, and I instinctively interpret it as if it were an omen of the future. But in my conscious opinion, which is so fundamental to my whole view of life, I mean, I would just have to change totally to not have this opinion in my conscious opinion. This is something that was written in a cookie factory several years ago, and in no way it refers to me. I mean, the fact that the man who wrote it did not know anything about me. I mean, he could not have known anything about me. There's no way that this cookie could actually have to do with me. And the fact that I've gotten it is just basically a joke. And I mean, if I were to go on a trip on an airplane and I got a fortune cookie that said don't go, I mean, of course, I admit I feel a bit nervous for about 1 second, but in fact I would go, because I mean, that trip is going to be successful or unsuccessful based on the state of the airplane and the state of the pilot, and the cookie is in no position to know about that. And I mean, it's the same with any kind of prophecy or sign or omen, because if you believe in omen, then that means that the universe, I mean, I don't even know how to begin to describe this. That means that the future is somehow sending messages backwards to the present, which means that the future must exist in some sense already in order to be able to send messages. And it also means that things in the universe are there for a purpose, to give us messages. Whereas I think that things in the universe are just there. I mean, they don't mean anything. I mean, if the turtle's egg falls out of the tree and splashes on the paving stones, it's just because the turtle was clumsy by accident. And to decide whether to send my ships off to war on the basis of what seems to be a big mistake to me. Andre responds, well, what information would you send your ships to war on? Because if it's all meaningless, what's the difference whether you accept the fortune cookie or the statistics of the Ford Foundation? It doesn't seem to matter. Wally responds again, well, the meaningless fact that the fortune cookie or the turtle's egg can't possibly have any relevance to the subject you're analyzing, whereas a group of meaningless facts that are collected and interpreted in a scientific way may quite possibly be relevant, because the wonderful thing about scientific theories about things is that they're based on experiments that can be repeated. Andre responds again, well, it's true, Wally. I mean, following omens and so on is probably just a way of letting ourselves off the hook, so that we don't have to take individual responsibility for our own actions. I mean, giving yourself over to the unconscious can leave you vulnerable to all sorts of very frightening manipulation. And in all the work I was involved in, there was always that danger. And there was always that question of tampering with people's lives. Because if I lead one of these workshops and then I do become partly a doctor and partly a therapist and partly a priest, and I'm not a doctor or a therapist or a priest, and already some of these new monasteries or communities or whatever we've been talking about are becoming institutionalized, and I guess even in a way at times sort of fascistic. There's a sort of self-satisfied elitist paranoia that grows up, a feeling of them and us that is very unsettling.